Uncensored, no holds barred talk. 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. This is the Global Reality Radio Network.
Welcome to another live edition of the Global Reality right here on the Global Reality Radio Network with me, your host, Josh Reeves. Thank you for being with us here tonight. It is the 4th of April, going into the 5th of April now, 2011. And we have got a big fuck ton of news. There's just no other way of putting it. We have a big ass ton of news to get into here with you tonight on the show. So, definitely strap in for this one, Moonbats. We're going to be getting Moonbatty here tonight on the broadcast. We're going to be going through a lot of different information, topics of discussion. We'll also be continuing in our series of reading of William Bramley's book, The Gods of Eden. By the way, scheduled to have on William Bramley Monday, April 18th at 7 p.m. Central Standard Time. So, definitely be tuning in for that and mark that on your calendars because that's going to be one for the books right there. I promise you that. So we will have William Bramley on the show April 18th, 7 p.m. Central Standard Time. So mark that one on your calendar. So tonight, chapter 15, Muhammad from the book, The Gods of Eden by William Bramley. So definitely stick around with us tonight. Wake up the neighbors, kick the dog, do whatever else. I'm not going to, I don't know. You're going to have to figure that one out yourself, Bubba. I'm not going to give you every fucking time. So what time is that in Greenwich Mean Time? I don't know. Get a fucking chart. Some things you have to figure out on your own. I know it sucks not being able to have everybody do everything for you. Some people believe that's how it is. A lot of, well, to be honest with you, and to be honest with myself as well, the only reason a lot of people tune into shows like mine and others is because people are lazy and they don't want to do the research for them, and they'd rather have somebody like myself who does nothing but do this, condense it all down for them and save them, a lot of legwork, and with good reason. That's kind of what we're doing here, right? I mean, we're kind of giving you years and years of my looking at all this stuff where you can then, basically hit the high points and know what you need to be looking at or at the same time not looking at as well. That's just as important. People always say, well, I'm looking into this and I'm looking into that and I'm researching this. Yes, but what are you not looking at? Because, you're still watching CSI or you're still watching, football or whatever else. So really, what you're not looking at is just as important as what you are looking at. So it doesn't matter how much, mind candy and mind vegetables and things like that are good for your brain you're putting into it. If you start loading in crap in there, it's going to override everything else. So got to be aware of that. So tonight here, if you, as well, if you would love to have emails from you tonight, I really love all the emails we get from you guys. They're so great out there. The ones we've been getting lately have just been super duper. And you guys have heard a lot of the ones we've read here on the show for you tonight, and through the different shows and through the various nights of shows that we've had. And that really, I mean, a lot of stuff that comes in is really good. A lot of people are doing very interesting things out there with information. And I like it when people present me with kind of what they're doing and ask me my opinion on it. It's pretty cool. People working on anagrams and stuff like that's really cool. We got one listener that's doing that. She's been sending me some stuff. It's really mind-blowing stuff, honestly. Hopefully we'll be able to bring some of that out to the audience eventually. It's really cool stuff in the emails. It's kind of hard to read it on air and have the impact it has by seeing it. But also, I talked about this documentary last week, The Winged Beetle. And one of our listeners, Eric, had made a video because a lot of the stuff with the Beetle stuff and the Tavistock and whatever it was. I don't tend to think that somebody was asking me what I thought about that movie. What's interesting to me about that movie is there was a lot of things in there I felt like I was filling in the blanks on that I knew because I know the history of everything. I mean, I know everything Beatles from the whole career. I mean, I know every tidbit on into their solo careers. I mean, I'm a fucking nerd when it comes to music and just as much as I am about, this type of stuff and this type of information. And so I could fill in the blanks with a lot of stuff, there, but I don't necessarily think that they put in a double that they got, did plastic surgery on this guy. I think what they did actually, especially with all the Crowley symbology and all that, I think that they transferred, somebody else's soul, possibly the soul of Aleister Crowley, into the body of Paul McCartney. The evidence points more in that direction than it does to them having some sort of double or something ready, because Paul McCartney and Mal Evans, the manager of the Beatles, had traveled to Africa, and allegedly this is where people believe the plastic surgery was held. They traveled to like the Hakishi Highlands or something like that, where the shaman are. It seemed like an odd place for a Beatle to be going with his manager, and that was it. And then as soon as they came back from the trip to Africa, Mal Evans, their manager, goes in and fires Paul McCartney's longtime butler without a word. And if you think about it, you go, well, he could have been the only guy that could have told that wasn't the same person. But with all the Crowley stuff and all the references in there and the anagrams, that's what I lean to towards more than anything. But Eric, one of our listeners, had created a video where he took the song Hello Goodbye. I was fucking hated that song. God damn. It's the worst fucking song. And there's a reason why it's the worst fucking song, because the song is not, as Eric has shown in this video that he's made. His name is Electro-Freenic in the chat room. But this video that he had made, you play the song backwards and it sounds like a mantra. Well, when Eric pointed that out, I didn't really type this in the chat room because it's kind of a lot to type, but what I wanted to add to my comment to that thing, it's about it being a mantra and all this, and it really sounds like that when you play it backwards. And knowing kind of the history of all the Beatles stuff and being a nerd on that, it's very interesting to me, and this is a fact. So I wanted to add this. So this is to you, Eric, for making that video. This is my little add-on to that. This is an absolute fact. When the Beatles traveled to India and they went to go see the Maharishi Mahesh Yogi, I think also the Rolling Stones went along there. I know Mike Love from the Beach Boys was there as well. It's in the Beatles anthology video you can watch, and they were talking about, it was George Harrison. He was saying, we were joking around and so we decided we were just going to go up to the Maharishi and say, hey, you got any mantras? And they're talking about, going up and asking him for mantras. So they were very aware of knowing what mantras are. And it seems very interesting to me that within just a few months, literally, you can look this up, within just a few months after that trip to India, they were in the studio recording that song, Hello Goodbye. So make of that what you will there, Eric, but I wanted to point that out since you had made that video and people had asked me my thoughts on that. I don't have time to go into all the Paul stuff, but needless to say, if you watch that movie, The Winged Beetle, you get a better idea of it. But I don't think that they replaced him with some body double thing. I think that they literally, it's the Chemical Wedding, man. If you ever seen the Crowley movie, it's just called Crowley in the States. It was called The Chemical Wedding in the UK. But that's generally the premise of that movie is the transmigration of souls and they transfer Crowley's soul into this other guy. And so with all of that, I mean, that's a part of, a lot of this OTO magic ritual stuff. And it definitely goes back to the secret societies, illuminated fraternities, the transference of the soul from one being over to something else. So, I just got to say, and then again, the fact that just the fact of the symbolic death, they had to, that's the reason that they created the whole Paul is dead thing, was because there had to be it was a symbolic death. It wasn't that Paul McCartney died in this car accident in his Aston Martin on the L1 motorway and was decapitated. That wasn't that. That was the symbolic death. That's why it was put out there, and then it was brought back that it was brought out that, okay, it was a hoax, whatever else. Right. Chemical Wedding Film was written by Bruce Dickinson and Iron Maiden. Right. He's also Ordo Templi Orientis, OTO. Right. There's a direct line, man. There's a direct line. Beatles. Direct line OTO, Beatles, Black Sabbath, Ozzy, Iron Maiden, ELO, Paul McCartney. I mean, there's a direct line in there. In fact, one of my friends had discovered and was telling me about this tonight. The two Beatles songs that there's a Beatles song in particular, Bruce Dickinson from Iron Maiden went on the record and said it was the song "She Loves You" is what spellbound him and got him into music. And then there's an interview with Ozzy Osbourne where he says the same thing. So when you see the connection to the OTO and to Crowley and to Ozzy, and you see these, and Jeff Lynne, of course, being the guy who produced the Beatles songs in the 90s after the anthology, was the only guy that was ever allowed to touch Beatles tapes besides the producer George Martin. It's fascinating stuff, man. Fascinating stuff, because you really see the connections, and you see how ELO was brought out as the next band. And of course, Don Arden, who was Sharon Osbourne's father, his two biggest bands people that he managed was ELO, and he was actually the first manager from Ozzy after he left Black Sabbath. And then Sharon Osbourne took Ozzy out on her own. But and it's interesting because about 6 or 7 months ago, I had mentioned on the show, and I didn't know a lot of this stuff yet, but I had mentioned on the show that I had noticed that in an ELO song off their album Out of the Blue, there's a part where it goes I, and you hear this sort of dun 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 dun. And that is an orchestra doing it, but it sounds very much similar to the Randy Rhoads dun 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 on Crazy Train. It's amazing. And so people see ELO and they see Ozzy and they're saying, "Oh, well, how can you have this connection to this sort of this symphonic pop group to, Ozzy and metal and Randy Rhoads and stuff?" But when you see that both of them were managed by Don Arden, who was known as, he was Jewish, known as the and OTO, from what I understand, he was known as the Al Capone of rock and roll. There's a very direct line there. So any of this stuff with Crowley and the OTO and the Tavistock and stuff in music, it's really, once you really look into it, it's just, it's an amazingly fascinating thing. But so there you go. I hope that answers some questions there. We got a lot of news and information to get into on the show tonight. My website is theglobalreality.com. It's www.theglobalreality.com. That's where this broadcast originates from. You can check out everything over there at the website. The chat room is there as well. For all the late night moonbats that are hanging out in there tonight, big shout out to everybody in the chat room at theglobalreality.com. We also have the archive section at the website. All of the archives from the radio shows, audio clips that people have made from the shows are up there. All my documentary films. We also have the, to support our work, we have the chip in banner and the donate button. And with the exception of a couple of people over the past couple of weeks, support has kind of been slow and it hasn't been very much. So I asked people to donate last week. Not a lot of people did. So please support us this week if you can. If you haven't supported us in a significant in a way in a while, please do so. We had to pay the bills last week, so we're kind of short right now. So thank you so much to everybody out there for your continued support. We're going to get into various news topics tonight. This is one of those stories for me where I go, shouldn't they, don't we already know that these fuckers are already doing this? I just, I don't know, man. Should I just say fucking Mormons and chalk it up to that and move on? I don't know. But Japanese crisis inspires U.S. Mormons to undergo survival training. And from what I understand, the people I've talked to, because, you know, I've known people that were Mormons, and stuff, what I understand, I mean, their whole lives are fucking survival training, right? They're required by their religion to have 2 years, ladies and gentlemen, 2 years of food on hand at all times. So the Japanese crisis is inspiring the Mormons to undergo survival training even more than they already do? This is fucking bizarre. I mean, my God. Let's just go ahead and just move right into the, don't want to forget the Magic Mormon underwear. Make sure those Magic Mormon underwear are made out of Kevlar. Shit, they probably already are anyway. You ever seen those things? Jesus Christ, man. The women's looks like a fucking chastity belt, and the guys has a fucking, it's a cock lock. I mean, there's just no other way I could say it. It's a fucking cock lock. It like keeps the cock locked down so it's not slipping out of any peephole or anything. And then the women's has, for lack of a better term, what can only really be described as a vaginal restraint. I mean, it's ridiculous. And they have little like square compasses, like Masonic symbols on them. You can't make that kind of shit up. You cannot make that kind of shit up. There are fucking Masonic square compasses on the Magic Mormon underwear. I mean, but of course, you know, Mormonism, as we know, was set up as a way to practice Freemasonry and secret, because at that time, Freemasonry was banned in the United States because of this murder that happened and blah, 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 and it got traced back to the Freemasons. So, of course, the Levite tribe, Merovingian bloodline, setting up that religion as they do all religions. While the nuclear crisis in Japan unfolds a continent away, Mormon-dominated communities in the western United States say the disaster overseas is bringing close to home a lesson about preparing for the worst. Emergency planning and the long-term storage of food, water, and medical supplies are central practices by the 14 million worldwide members of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. The tradition stems from doctrine. If ye are prepared, ye shall not fear. I mean, my God, that sounds like, I mean, that's so fucking ridiculous. Think about that for a minute. If ye are prepared, ye shall not fear. Well, what's the motivation to be prepared then? Fear. So their doctrine states that if you have fear and act on that fear, then you won't have fear anymore. I mean, only a dense fucking moron would buy into this horse shit. I mean, literally, folks, I'm not trying to be funny. That's what it says. Don't get mad at me because I'm telling you what the fuck it says, and that's what it says. If ye are prepared, ye shall not fear. So if you get scared and act on your fear, you're not going to have fear anymore, okay? Honey, if you just pretend your stomach's full, it won't even bother you haven't eaten in a week. You just act like you've eaten. It's okay. You just how fucking dense do you think we are? This was established by Joseph Smith when he founded the church in 1830 in upstate New York. It also stems from the persecution that drove his early followers from the Midwest to the Rocky Mountains in 1847. Present-day Mormons concentrated in the United States in Utah, California, and Idaho say preparedness and self-reliance are a way of life and not signs of survivalist leanings or knee-jerk responses to disasters. It's not a sudden, spectacular program, said Craig Rasmussen, spokesman for the church in Idaho, second only to Utah for the highest percentage of Mormons. Yeah, Idaho and Utah. Go ahead and just stay away from those two states. Man. Worries about radiation from Japan's crippled nuclear plants have spurred sales in the West of potassium iodine to block absorption of cancer-causing radioactive iodine, even though the U.S. officials say minor amounts detected in the air, rainwater, or milk in 15 states pose no health risk. At a time of renewed interest in how to cope with calamity in a region where Mormonism is the prevailing religious, cultural, and social influence, companies selling dehydrated, freeze-dried, or canned foods in bulk are reporting rising sales. Well, I mean, my goodness, you've got the Mormon mouthpiece up there, Glenn Beck. who is the quintessential mouthpiece for right-wing Mormons. I mean, this guy, look, as I've told you the correlations between Alex Jones and Glenn Beck before, and really the fact of the matter is they both get a check from Fox News. That's a fact. They're both employees of Fox News, and they're both salesmen. Alex Jones does his KLBJ radio show on a Fox News affiliate in Austin. He gets a paycheck from Fox News, folks. So they both get a paycheck from Fox News, and they're both great salesmen. And really nothing, there's really nothing more you can really say about it. That's what it is. At a time, it says Dr. Don Pechtel, Vice President of Emergency Essentials Incorporated, retail and online emergency supply chain, based near Salt Lake City, said top sellers are powdered milk, water purifiers, and meat processed to extended shelf life. So this is a very bizarre article. The only reason I've continued to read this much of it is you kind of, I notice you're probably thinking the same thing I am as I'm reading. What's the point? Well, the point is this. This article, and the way it's presenting itself, it's acting like this is a big deal that the Mormons are prepared. So, as was my reaction when I saw this, was like, so what the fuck? Yeah, everybody knows that, right? And actually, my thought was, oh God, wow, if the Mormons are, freaking out over this, geez. But that's not the point of this article. Even the people that are Mormon here say, yeah, this is a normal practice. It says it 4 or 5 times. This is nothing normal. This is not a reaction to what's going on in Japan or the nuclear disaster or any of that stuff. So what we have here, if that's true, and we're taking, it's like, who do you want to believe? Do you want to believe the media or do you want to believe these Mormons? Honestly, I don't believe either one of them, but I'd have to say, I think this is a classic case of them trying to take what's already going on, what the Mormons are already doing, and using this to further the fear-mongering of, radioactive fallout and the rest of this stuff. Because they're really, on one end, they're trying to fear-monger it. On the other end, they're downplaying it. I mean, like I described before, it's just classic cognitive dissonance all over the place. So they get people not knowing what to believe. I mean, you get this end of people over here saying, oh, those are just fear-mongers, don't worry about it. And then you get other people over here saying, oh, no, you need to be worried about this. This is fucking, they're covering this up. The mass media is not covering this story. They're trying to, downplay it and say it's not a threat. But then people don't know what to believe. They're just confused, and they don't know how to act, because both of these issues sound plausible. And I told you a couple of years ago, when swine flu broke out back in 2009, that you were going to start to see more and more of these things in the coming years, where it was going to be harder and harder and harder to pick a side. They've done that with political parties, because you get these people in these limited conversation arguments on television with the divide and conquer left-right media. And, you hear lefty liberal over here, and they're saying some stuff that you kind of agree with, and they say something else. Yeah, I could see that. And then they say something else that's totally off base that you don't agree with in a million years. And then you got, crazy right-wing Christian over here on the right, and he's saying some shit that's out of fucking control, and he's talking some madness, and so you're like, this guy's an idiot. And then he says something that's totally on board with the belief system you have. Well, then you're torn, right? Because, you don't agree with either one of these clowns, but they've both said something that you can agree with. So then you're torn. And so then it comes down to really, when people are faced with that dividing situation, normally what they do is they default to whatever their programming is for what they were taught by their parents or social figures, whoever that were above them, teachers, what have you. They default to whatever their basic core values represent at that given time. Meaning if they were raised Christian, blah, 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 they're going to gravitate more towards the right guy. But why? And vice versa with people leaning towards the left. It's all a result of the program. Because again, you're not really on board with either one of these clowns, right? I mean, you can see the whole cloth that both of them are not telling the whole story. Both of them have their own agendas. And you don't agree with either one of them totally, but that's where they get us, because they get us to just acquiesce to what we would consider to be a lesser evil. well, I'll go. I'm a Christian. I go to church, so I'm going to go, even though I only agree with about 10% of what Righty McRightwing over here says, he's a quote unquote Christian like I am. So I'm going to go over here and vote for him and get on his team, even though I don't agree with everything he's saying. Cause what I'm not going to do is go stand over there with those goddamn pinko commie liberals. And the pinko commie liberals are saying the same thing. I agree with 90% of what Righty McRightwing says over here. But because he has an R next to his name, I'm not going to stand over there. And that's how they get us. And they're doing the same thing now with this. Again, you got these people over here. Oh, my God, be scared, buy iodine, oh, my God. And you see it in the mainstream media, and you see it in the independent media, the alternative media. I hear people that I have had a lot of respect for in the past fear-mongering the fuck out of this stuff right now. I told you from day one, look, it's not up to me to sway your decision one way or the other. What I would say is that, if you have the resources available to you to prepare yourself for stuff like this, then do it. But don't go broke trying to prepare yourself for something that may or may not happen. Because in the end, you have to have faith that whatever is going to happen to you is a part of something bigger than you anyway. And that's where they get us. They get us, because then we're like, well, blah, blah, blah. It sounds plausible. It's probably, yeah. And then, of course, all somebody has to do is say, well, yeah, man, that's just the mass media. The mainstream media is not covering this. They're telling us it's not a threat. And then, boom, people because of their knowledge of the mass media and how they lie, then that sways their opinion to go over here and start buying $40 iodine tabs from Alex Jones or whoever it may be. You see? But then again, you have that same situation I described back in 2009 when the swine flu stuff broke out, which is this boy that cried wolf scenario. One day there's really going to be a wolf there. One day there's really going to be a wolf there. After we've heard Alex Jones and whoever else cry wolf a million times, one of these days that wolf's going to be there. And because this motherfucker and other motherfuckers like him have cried wolf so many times, a lot of people are going to go, well, that's just the fearmonger again, so I'm not going to pay attention to that. So that's one of the angles of the whole of people that are against Alex Jones and people like me who try to expose the crap and the connected people that he's connected to and all that stuff. I think that's one of the things that a lot of those people, I'm glad that you've woken up to that, and I'm glad people are figuring that out, but also understand that that's very real. And that at one of these times there may be something that and don't be so quick every time to just say it's Alex Jones, fearmonger, or anybody else without totally looking into it for yourself first. That's all I'm saying. I'm trying to give credibility to the guy or anything else. All I'm saying is that it could be one of these situations one day where we need to act and where we need to actually do something. We don't, because we've been conditioned by these boy that cried wolf fuckers yelling and screaming the sky is falling and then nothing ever does. So we have to be aware of that. It could be a trap where they're trying to condition us to believe that everything that comes out of these guys' mouths, because it really has been up to this point, between Y2K, Jones, and all the stuff that he did in the past 10 years up till now, it's just boy that cried wolf over and over again. But this could be the trap. This could be the way that they've set something up to be able to kill a lot of people or rope a lot of people into camps or whatever else the scenarios that Jones and others have described. You see what I mean? I'm just saying let's be aware of that. Let's not make our that's, to me, just writing off something that could be a threat just because Alex Jones has fearmongered it without looking into it and confirming for yourself that it is fearmongering, I think is just as dangerous as believing everything that somebody like him or others like him say. You understand? So I want to make that clear. I think it's important, and sometimes I think that some people just they don't really look at the whole big grand scope picture there. But nonetheless, if you got emails tonight, we'd love to hear from you. GlobalRealityShow@gmail.com. It's GlobalRealityShow@gmail.com. I'd love to have any emails you have tonight. Let's see what else we have here in the news. There's lots of it. Oh, this is just a comforting article here from Press TV. I'll tell you what, I think they're just going to go ahead and finish the job in fucking Japan. What do you guys think? I think they're just going to go and here's the rest of what we didn't drop the first time, fuckers. I mean, my goodness gracious. I don't know, hey, it's a boon for the New World Order because, I mean, shit, you know what kind of fucking resource sucker Japan is? I mean, my God, they're the reason. Go look, dude, you know your history. They're the whole reason we got World War II in the first place. Trade embargoes on oil and all that shit. Japan nuclear crisis to poison the entire world. Well, that's bold. That's from Press TV here. Countries around the world have been monitoring the Japanese nuclear disaster while many are concerned about the safety of nuclear plants and the dangers they impose. Press TV interviewed Professor William Beeman, who was with the University of Minnesota, regarding the Fukushima plant nuclear disaster and how the aftermath will affect the population on Earth. I would just like to pick on the point that was made by Japan's energy secretary earlier. He said, we are seeing right now is not a slow meltdown. The situation is coming under control. Well, I'm not a nuclear scientist and I have no way of verifying this, but I would agree that the Japanese public has generally been skeptical about what the government has said about these things. The Japanese government is very cautious of trying to save face in the international community. This is going to be an unprecedented disaster, of course. Probably no one could have foreseen what was actually going on. Nevertheless, the government wants to appear confident. But it goes, I'm not going to read all this, but it goes on and on and on. Trying to find the point where it says, I'm trying to find the part where it talks about how this could spread throughout the entire world. Because sometimes you'll see these headlines like this and you'll get into the article and you can't ever find anywhere in the goddamn article where they actually say that. But I'm trying to verify that this isn't one of them or may be one of them. I'm trying to see where it says this. So bear with me here as I scan this and talk at the same time. It says, the lack of planning, not only on the part of TEPCO, but the government isn't a little alarming for you? Well, of course it is. And this is one of the reasons why any country that has nuclear facilities around the world has now begun to think very seriously about what can happen if they had a disaster of that magnitude. Here in the United States, we have a major nuclear plant right near New York City. There's been a lot of discussion in the United States about what would happen if there was some disaster that caused a meltdown at that plant. Millions of people would be affected, so it's a real wake-up call for everyone who has a nuclear facility any place near. It might be the possibility of some kind of disaster. So how long do you think the government can keep this facade of calm and control as it continues to spiral out of control? Well, they probably can keep it up for a while until people start getting sick. When you see people getting sick from radiation poisoning, then there will be no denying the government's responsibility in this case. And also no denying that they may have withheld information that they knew to be true. I want to point out to you that the Japanese government has not been very good with regard to environmental disasters. There's been a stream of them over the years. From mercury poisoning to all other kinds of environmental endangerment, and the government in every single case denied probability and even protected the industries. Yeah, they're one of the biggest polluters. I mean, think about the goddamn whaling and the Japanese whalers and all that stuff. When you really look at this and you look at the possibility of this being caused by Stuxnet or anything else, you really start to see this idea that this very well could have been a pre-planned attack. And the way it's looking, in fact, I kind of made an offhanded comment a bit ago about the possibility they may, I said they might as well just nuke the fucker and get it over, finish what they didn't drop the first time. And you know what? It seems like I read that somewhere. They were talking about they may have to do that. They're already dumping water in there. My point of the matter of even talking about this is this, and those of you who listen to the show know I've avoided talking about this situation very much on the show since it happened. Only important things will I hit on the topic. And I think that article fell into the guise of an important one because it proves the point that the whole thing is based on a cognitive dissonance model. And I think that's very suspect because it's not the usual model they run. Yes, they use cognitive dissonance in many other operations. Yes, they use it in the divide and conquer Hegelian dialectic stuff, left-right paradigm stuff. But we saw a little bit of this with swine flu. You had, some section of the population believing it was a hoax, or you had another section of the population believing it was real. We started to see the same kind of thing happen last year with the Gulf oil spill because there was even people coming out saying the whole oil spill thing was staged and that it wasn't real and there was no oil coming out of and I just, I was like, okay, I guess I could see that might be possible, but I'm not really buying that. So same thing here. But again, we're just seeing this continuation of cognitive dissonance where people just don't know what to believe. And that's very dangerous. That tells me that whatever it is, it's probably not what either sides of the argument are currently arguing about or discussing. It's probably something a lot more sinister than that. And isn't it always a lot more sinister than that? I mean, everything that we find, that we think we have one level of the truth of something, we find that when we peel back the onion and we peel back farther and farther, it's even more sinister than we thought in the first place. That's definitely how I feel about all of this research, all this information now after doing radio here for 4 years and stuff. I definitely feel that what I know now compared to what I knew 4 years ago proves one very distinct thing to me, and that is there is way, 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 way more to all of this than what the controlled paradigm, gatekeeping, truth movement, half-truth movement, whatever you want to call it, is giving. And that's a fact, and it is a lot more darker and more sinister and a lot more difficult to wrap your mind around. But all that stuff is put there to keep you from getting to that point. Because, see, if we can evolve to that point of where our belief of what is possible shifts, we then can expand our minds out a lot more so we can really even wrap them around the levels of things. And just we have been generationally lied to for thousands of years. I mean, even if the truth was laid out right before us in all the Vatican libraries and whatever have you was opened up to us right now, most of our minds would not be able to wrap themselves around the implications of what all that information would really mean, because we have been generationally kept ignorant for so long. And that's really the dividing line between them and us. And so, because we're hot on their heels and we know more now than we did a year ago, 2 years ago, 5 years ago, 10 years ago, for sure. I mean, look how many more people now know what's going on in the 10 years, almost 10 years now since 9/11. It's kind of mind-blowing. The shift in people I've seen that are awake now in the 4 years I've been doing radio is mind-blowing, not to mention the people now that, now the CMP and all that stuff has become a part of the vocabulary thanks to, the work that I've done and others have done. So you can't tell me that the tide doesn't turn, because it does, as long as you stick with it long enough. And that's what we always have to remember, is that it's just getting up and getting after it every day and not stopping and dedicating yourself to it. That's what brings about change. It's just not stopping and not getting lazy on it, not getting comfortable with what you know. See, I'm never comfortable with what I know. I know a lot, but there's a lot more I can know, and I want it. You know what I mean? We're going to take a break, come back, get into more news for you here tonight. Then we'll be also reading from William Bramley's The God of Eden, chapter 15. Muhammad Allah. Yes, Muhammad will be reading from that chapter tonight. So lots of show left. globalrealityshow@gmail.com. That's globalrealityshow@gmail.com. If you've got comments or questions or anything you'd like to hear me talk about here tonight on the show, that's where you should send it to, globalrealityshow@gmail.com. Oh, yeah, back here with you on the Global Reality, right here on the Global Reality Radio Network. I'm your host, Josh Reeves. Thank you for being with us tonight here for another late-night Moonbat edition of the broadcast. We got a lot more news for you here tonight to get into. A lot of very interesting stories and stuff tonight. Actually, some very pertinent news for once. So we'll be jumping right back into that here tonight. We're also going to be reading from William Bramley's The Gods of Eden tonight. Chapter 15 is entitled Muhammad. This will be getting into really the area that we've already been talking about, which is these custodial rulers extraterrestrials, whatever have you, setting up world religions and setting up Christianity. And also, as we'll get into here, I'm sure the next chapter here tonight, chapter 15, Islam and the rest of that. So it should be very interesting read, as the rest of it has been. Check and see. No more different. Oh, yeah. Somebody sent me something and said if I've seen the symbology of the movie Hot Tub Time Machine. You know, I did mention I haven't seen that movie. It's a goofy, silly, funny movie. But somebody said that there's all sorts of references in it to the Japanese earthquake and stuff. I can't confirm that. It says several times throughout the film, references made to the earthquake, tsunami, nuclear fallout disaster in Japan in March 2011. The movie was filmed and released prior to the March 11, 2011 earthquake and the following tsunami and nuclear reactor meltdown. During a crazy night of drinking in a hot tub, they spilled a can of an illegal Russian energy drink called Chernobyl on the hot tub's controls. The Chernobyl disaster was a nuclear accident that occurred on 26th of April, 1986 at the Chernobyl nuclear power plant. Yeah, well, I was talking about, it's interesting though. I don't know if any of that's true or what. I can't confirm, but I remember bringing up on the show when I saw that movie that I thought was interesting that movie sort of for the first time was the only movie where the whole grandfather effect thing, they point out that that's, not necessarily true. And that's something I found in my research is that the whole idea that, time traveling back in time and killing your grandfather so you won't be born or whatever have you, actually is not correct, because time takes place on various different levels and dimensions and everything else. So I had mentioned that, that being such a goofy movie as it was, a comedy movie, that underlying that, for the first time, I think probably ever in a major Hollywood film, it seemed that somebody was trying to send a clear message, but do it through a comedy so it wouldn't get as noticed, that the whole idea of, going back and changing time and when you're time traveling is actually a myth because of things happening on so many different time waves and levels and all that stuff. So my point is that, if I was able to glean that from that goofy ass movie without one watching it and seriously pull out the fact that, hey, for the first time, you're perpetuating that myth, like Back to the Future, where, Marty McFly, his mother and father didn't get together, he disappears. Well, that's one of those lies that's been perpetrated on us. And for whatever reason, I don't think we know yet. I think in the future, we will know why that lie has been attempted to perpetrate it. So my point is that if that's in there, it wouldn't surprise me if this stuff was in there concerning the Japanese earthquake thing. Because again, in the Nicolas Cage film, Knowing, there's a scene at the beginning of that where he's sitting there watching the television and it's talking about an oil disaster in the Gulf of Mexico and stuff. It's on the screen. There's all kinds of that weird stuff like that in movies, like in The Big Lebowski, with Jeff Bridges. He's sitting there waiting in line, and Bush is speaking on the TV, and he's signing his check for his carton of milk at the beginning of the movie. And, he dates it. I think it's like 9/11/91 or something like that. I think somebody said that that's the same day that Bush gave the New World Order speech. I don't know if that's true or not. But also in the movie The Matrix as well, his driver's license, when at the beginning of the movie where Agent Smith brings him in, Mr. Anderson, he's got his file there. If you take a still of that and flip it around, and you see that Neo or Mr. Anderson's driver's license expires on 9/11/01, 2 years before the movie came out. So there's tons and tons of that stuff. There's little hints and clues everywhere. All of these conspiracies or what have you, the conspirators always like to leave little clues because, what's the point if at least a small amount of people don't know about it? Then there's no point in doing it, because these guys want the glory. I've heard rumors about, stuff like Rockefellers and Rothschilds or whoever, people that we talk about, may talk about in these shows, they listen to shows like mine and others like them because we're the only people that are talking about them. Because a lot of these guys, your average everyday person doesn't know some of these deeper occultists or whoever it may be that we're talking about. And because they get off so much on hearing their own names and hearing people talk about the evil shit that they're up to, supposedly they monitor shows like this and listen to that and because they love it. They love to hear their own names. They love to hear themselves talked about, and that's how sick they are. So it wouldn't surprise me if that was the case. But try to see if I had any more news here. I mean, any more emails. Let's see. I think that's about it. Let's get back into some news here for you tonight. Again, globalrealityshow@gmail.com. Sorry for the pause here. I'm sort of going through my stacks and what I want to go to next. Oh, yeah. I'm not even going to waste my breath talking about this. I'll just say this and I'll move on. Because, again, if you haven't figured this out by now, if you didn't figure this out on the first go-round, last elections, when everybody was roped into the whole Ron Paul thing and they took everybody's money and then tanked the campaign. But he's been a Navy SEAL, pro wrestler, author, governor of Minnesota, and even appeared on the soap opera. So is running for vice president, the next thing on Jesse Ventura's to-do list. Hey, I will tell you this. If Ron Paul runs as independent, I will give consideration being his running mate. I'm telling you right now. That's all there is to it. Oh, man. So there you go. I'm not even going to waste my breath talking any more about that. Do I need to? Do I really need to? Because if I need to break that one down for you, you obviously haven't been listening very long to my show, so I'm not even gonna bother. Lawmakers renew push for rogue websites bill. A bipartisan group of lawmakers from both chambers of Congress on Monday vowed to pass legislation giving the U.S. Justice Department new authority to go after foreign and domestic websites that sell pirated music and movies and counterfeit goods. Online infringement and the sale of counterfeit goods cost American creators, producers, and businesses billions of dollars and results in the loss of hundreds of thousands of jobs. Well, let me tell you a little story. Okay. And I've been needing to, this story sort of got me thinking about this. I recently came across some very interesting information. It doesn't really, well, let me put it to you like this. When I first started looking into what I'm about to tell you about, I wasn't, it was so weird because it was the one time, folks, because I was looking at music instruments, guitars and stuff. And it was the one time when I was looking into something, trying to figure something out, that I wasn't thinking in the frame of mind that I think about when I'm doing research into, whatever you want to call it. I hate the term the New World Order. I hate the term the Illuminati, whatever you want to call it. But, I wasn't looking at this in the same frame of mind. And tell you what, that was a mistake. But sometimes you're trying to look at things that you'd think, you're not trying to think in that frame of mind, And so I started noticing that, and I should have, and once I did start thinking about that, I was able to figure out what was going on with this. Well, I started noticing that there is all of these guitars coming out of Gibson guitars, specifically anything that Cayman Music makes, Gibson guitars, Rickenbacker, ESP, Paul Reed Smith, trying to think of what else, Kramer. There's a bunch of them. And I started noticing there were all these guitars that were being sold online that looked identical to authentic Gibsons. We're talking about $5,000, $10,000, $25,000 Gibsons. And yet there was all this talk online of people saying that these were counterfeits, right? Bootleg knockoffs. Well, after inspecting a lot of these guitars and looking at them, and they're in their price somewhere, in $300 or $400 range of guitars that are like $5,000 and $6,000, I started noticing. I was like, well, this is so weird. So I started digging and doing some research. Well, come to find out, Gibson Guitars in the United States of America entered into a deal about 3 years ago, a 10-year plan to move all of their domestic guitar manufacturing over to China. They shipped all of their necks, all of their bodies, all of the parts they had for years and years and years of building guitars in the United States over to China. But because they are exploiting something called the 51% rule, which says that if 51% of their corporate activity and their corporate salaries are paid in the United States, they can build all of their guitars in China and still put "Made in the USA" on the back of them. That's pretty fucking criminal, right? Well, here's the deal. So I started seeing these guitars. So, these are totally different. I was like, well, let's see if anybody has gotten caught selling these. And what I found out was even more interesting. Come to find out, this is what they don't want you to know. What Gibson Guitars does not want you to know, ladies and gentlemen, is this: the $5,000 Gibson or the $25,000 Jimmy Page model or whatever it may be hanging in Guitar Center or wherever else, whatever guitar shop is near you. Ladies and gentlemen, those are assembled in the same plant in China that their low-end Epiphone guitars are. What they do is they assemble the bodies and the necks, they make them in China, then they ship the bodies and the necks assembled to the United States, where they put the pickups, the American electronics, and the American tuners on them. Now, the ones that you get from China, you can get like a $25,000, Billy Gibbons Pearly Gates for $350 or $500 or whatever, $800, whatever, whatever the price may be. They're different prices, but and the only thing different about them is the pickups, the electronics, and the tuners. Now, there was a couple of guys who started selling $5,000 Les Paul Customs for $1,000 all day long. Come and get them. Well, he sold one to one kid who was 15, whose daddy was a lawyer. So they raid this guy's house. They find like 3 more of these guitars, and now he's getting pumped in the ass by Bubba. Another dealer, another shop got busted. They had like 18 of these things. The FBI and the ATF come in, and they start investigating the guitars. They had to fly someone in, a representative from Gibson in, to take a look at these guitars to verify that if they were real or not. So what happens? Well, the Gibson guy says that they're not real. So the FBI and the ATF take them at their word, but that's not absolutely true. But Gibson is perpetrating the lie that these guitars that are made in their factory, the only difference, are made by them. The only difference between the ones that are $5,000, $8,000 in the store are the pickups and the electronics and the tuners, yet they are telling people when they get busted that these are counterfeit guitars when they absolutely are not. Is that unbelievable or what? So not only are they exploiting this law where they get to stamp "Made in the USA," because all these guitars, they have serial numbers, legit serial numbers on them. They say "Made in the USA." But if that ever gets out, and it's going to, I promise you that. I'll just leave it at that. That you can have for about $500 any guitar you want made by Gibson that costs $5,000, $10,000, $25,000. It's over for them. But anyway, I wanted to pass that on because it's one of those things where when I was looking into this, I wasn't thinking of things in the frame of mind of, research and all of that. And that was my downfall. So the lesson I learned from this, and hopefully it's a lesson you can learn, because the only reason I tell you these goddamn stories, honestly, are because hopefully you can learn something from my experience. The lesson here is that always have your ears on. You know what I mean? Always have your antenna up, man, I'm telling you. Because you will find truth in the oddest of places. You will find things that will further your research and your understanding of how far-reaching the grand conspiracy is in the oddest of places, in the places you didn't think to look. It's unbelievable. So, yeah, I mean, these guitars are unreal. The only thing that's different about them is the electronics. The necks aren't leveled on them or anything. You basically have to replace the electronics, the pickups, the tuners, have the necks level. But I was reading forums about these where guys were saying, there was one guy that bought one of the ones they have is like the Ace Frehley Kiss model, right? It's like a 3 pickup Les Paul. Those go for like $3,500. Well, they sell them out of Japan for like 500. I mean, out of China for like 500 or whatever, right? The only thing different about them is the pickups, the tuners, and the electronics. Well, there was one guy that said he got one of these, changed out all that stuff, took it over to his buddy's house and put it up against his buddy's, and it smoked it. And I also found all these Better Business Bureau reports about Gibson saying people are buying like $3,000 Gibsons and they got bubbled paint and everything else like they're made in a cheap Chinese factory. That's because they are. But yet Gibson is still perpetrating the lie that when you go to their to buy one of their $3,000 guitars, you are getting a made in the USA $3,000 Gibson that's the same as one you would have bought 20, 30, 50 years ago. And that is an absolute unmistakable lie. Gibson guitars, you are a bunch of liars and you know it. And you're sold out America. You've sold out the country that made you great, that gave you the legacy you have. And it's something that helped build your fame. You are now using the people that helped build that to line your pockets. And it disgusts me. Do not support the Gibson Guitar Company. I suggest that every single fucking body out there, if you want a great guitar on the cheap, by the way, and me and a friend of mine are now going in business to sell guitars. So, hey, you want one that's all fixed up, ready to go, you know who to hit up, right? But no, seriously, fuck these people. They are lying, and they're telling people that these guitars, the thing about it is, well, the guys that fucked up selling them were selling them as authentic Gibsons. Now, if you're just getting them and not giving anybody any sort of, belief that it's in any way, shape, or form a real Gibson, but yet tell them the story, see, then, you can get, it's going to put these fuckers out of business. And they deserve to be, because they're lying to people, using shady business practices. And, this shit's going on everywhere. This is where we're at. That's why I'm bringing this up. This shit's going on everywhere, man. They are raping and pillaging and looting everything they can, and yet they're still trying to act like there's classism. Like, oh, we're better than you because we have all this money, and oh, the poor, the stupid poor people over here. You guys only have it because you've lied and robbed and stealed your way to it from the poor. These people didn't gain power because they've done the best thing for the people or for humanity or the planet. They've done it because they're the most bloodthirsty son of a bitches that we have. The whole system's been built on that. So yet again, another iron in my fire, another way to, everything you use is a sweatshop item. Everything. The illusion that anything is made in the USA and that has any credence anymore is absolutely bunk. That's an absolute fabrication. It's amazing how many little cracks and little seeps and little things like that you start to see in the foundation. Everything they do is based on illusion, subterfuge, lies. And we put our belief in that illusion, and what happens? The illusion becomes real. And that's exactly what they've built their entire system on. We have put our belief in it. We believed it to be real. So the illusion has now become reality. As soon as the facade of that is torn away, even in the slightest way, it's a problem for these people. So again, I can't say that enough. Truth finds you in the oddest places. I wasn't expecting to find that bit of truth in the place that I found it, because again, my brain wasn't even in that frame of mind. I was the farthest damn thing from my mind at that moment, folks. It absolutely was, and I couldn't figure it out. And then as soon as I switched my brain onto the research mode, I went, oh, my God, here it is. And I started digging. I started finding all this information on with these motherfuckers. They are pulling a gigantic heist. They can sell their shit because to a licensed dealer of theirs for $5,000, but they will put you in prison if you sell the same thing to someone for $500. Now tell me that's not a racket. What's changed about it? What's different? Nothing. It's an illusion that one is authentic and one isn't. And they are perpetrating this myth and this illusion that because said guitar was purchased at Guitar Center for $5,000, it is more legitimate and more authentic than the same guitar you have that's identical to it that you paid $500 for. So what's real? Which one's real and which one is the illusion? It depends on the person who's trying to perpetrate the scam and their perspective, doesn't it? I mean, this is a microcosm for everything to me. This idea that there is nothing different in these two items, but because someone with officiality, again, they couldn't, the ATF and the FBI couldn't determine that these guitars were in any way, shape, or form phony. They had to fly the professional in from, and of course, what do you think the stooge from Gibson's going to say? Oh, yeah, they're fake, put them in jail. Because if they told the truth, and that's the thing about this is provable in a court of law. Because these guitars have they have Epiphone electronics and Epiphone pickups in them because they're coming out of the Epiphone factory. But again, they're saying this over here is official. Well, it was made in the same plant as the one that you said is a counterfeit over here. The only thing different is the electronics on the one you say is fake, we're putting in China. The electronics on this one over here, we're putting in America, but they're the same thing. They're made on the same CNC machines and everything else. But it's that illusion, the idea of creating the illusion that this one over here is legit and this one over here is a counterfeit, even though they're the exact same thing. My God, that's a microcosm for the whole larger picture, isn't it? Because they trick us into believing that puppet over here is authentic and puppet over here is not authentic. And this guy over here is the bad guy. You don't want to vote for him. You want to vote for this guy over here. Well, what's the illusion? They're both the same thing. But they lie to you and get you to think that puppet on the left is somehow different than puppet on the right, but they're not. They're of the same exact thing. Religion. This religion over here is right. No, this religion over here is no. Islam is right. No, Christianity is right. But guess what? As we're going to probably find out, I'm sure tonight from reading more of William Bramley's book, they're both the same goddamn thing. But they trick us into believing. That's the illusion. It's such a fucking mind melter when you realize that. Almost there, that little thing with Gibson guitars that I just told you, that is a microcosm for the entire system, ladies and gentlemen. It really is. Unbelievable. And again, I just want to relate that story to you because, again, you find truth in the strangest of places. You really do. Whew, man. All right, let's see what else we have here tonight. Lots more stuff tonight, man. I hope I got enough energy and wind left to get to Bramley tonight. I'm sure I will. Got a lot of show left for you tonight. You might want to boil another pot of coffee or something. Get that Mountain Dew enema going. I don't know, do what you got to do. Hey, you guys heard about Barack Obama's new campaign? It's not Yes We Can this time. No, it's Are You In? Hey, man, are you in? And I love that because Are You In? The only thing I could think of as soon as I heard that, hey, his campaign slogan was Are You In? All I could think of were the letters Are You In, which spell run! Run the fuck away from Obama, run! So I think it's fitting that his campaign slogan is Are You In? Run. Yeah, run the fuck away, kicking and screaming from the left-right paradigm. Ah! Out of fucking control. Let's see what else we have here tonight. Oh, this is great. Authorities intercepted a parcel this morning addressed to Representative Peter King, a Republican from New York, containing a bloody pig's foot And a derogatory message. Is he a Jew? What did it say? Eat this, you dirty kike, or something like that. The parcel was intercepted at the Congressional Mail Facility in Landover, Maryland, where mail is sent to lawmakers is screened for security risks. The U.S. Capitol Police and U.S. Postal Service confirmed that there was an open investigation that would not confirm the details of what was contained in the parcel because the investigation is ongoing. My guess is it was an anti-Muslim bigot, and bigots not being brain surgeon, they probably got their signals crossed. Update. A source on Capitol Hill told ABC the note contained anti-Semitic ramblings and referenced the radicalization hearings. King is Roman Catholic. Yeah, well, I could have told you that. Oh, man, oh, man. Tweaking the climate to save it. Who decides? Geoengineering the climate, which they've already been doing for God knows how long, is back in the news as they're trying to create this facade, this image that, oh, they're meeting and having meetings on how we can geoengineer the climate. Because what they're going to do is they're going to have some fake, think tank or from some fake NGO or whatever have you come together and say, we need to geoengineer the climate so we can save ourselves from climate change. And at that point, that is when they will effectively turn over the cost responsibilities for the aerosol chemtrail activity to the people of the world. And if you think that that's not coming, folks, I hate to break your bubble and tell you how fucking naive you are, but it's a fact. They are going to spin this lie to the general public that we've got to start modifying the climate with spraying aerosols and all this stuff in the atmosphere, as if we're not already doing that, as if the evidence isn't already there that we're doing that in spades. So they can then turn the cost of this, well, we've got to have this global carbon tax, or we've got to have this, that, and the other to pay for this. Because these motherfuckers are getting tired of having to fund this out of their own pocket. So they want to get the people of the world to foot the bill on this. So what they'll do is they'll have some NGO or some think tank or something of that nature, and they'll say, 12 guys locked themselves in a room for 12 months, the best minds in the world, and they came up with this idea, and then all those guys that were in that room will go on to get book deals and write about it, blah, blah, blah. But yet, there is a contingency of people in the world that know this has been going on for a very long time. Tweaking the climate to save it. Who decides? This is from ABC News. To the quiet green solitude of an English country estate, they retreated to think the unthinkable. I mean, it already reads like science fiction. To the quiet green solitude of an English countryside estate, they retreated to think the unthinkable. Scientists of earth, sea, and sky, scholars of law, politics, and philosophy, in 3 intense days, cloistered behind Kinchley Hall's old brick walls, 4 dozen thinkers pondered the planet's fate as it grows warmer. They weighted the idea of reflecting the sun to cool the atmosphere and debated the question of who would make the decision to interfere with nature to try and save the planet. Coming this summer. From director Ron Howard. Who writes this stuff, man? It's straight out of a fucking Hollywood movie script right there. And when you read it in that voiceover voice, it really makes sense to you. Like, it reads just like a goddamn bumper to some Hollywood movie. The unknown risks of geoengineering, in this case, tweaking Earth's climate by dimming the skies, left many uneasy. If we could experiment, motherfucker, can and are. If we could experiment with the atmosphere and literally play God, it's very tempting to a scientist, said Kenyan Earth scientist Richard Odingo, but I worry. Arrayed against that worry is the worry that global warming in 20 years, 50 years may abruptly upend the world we know by melting much of Greenland into the sea and by shifting India's life-giving monsoon, killing off marine life. If climate engineering research isn't done now, climatologists say the world will face grim choices in an emergency. If we don't understand the implications and we reach a crisis point and deploy geoengineering with only a modicum of information, we will really be playing Russian roulette, which right there with that statement tells us that, thank you very much, they have already started playing Russian roulette and have been for some time. This has been the whole plan. This is why they've been doing this. People often asked and have asked me and have asked the question just in general about HAARP. Why would they be blasting these holes in the atmosphere? Well, it is a good question if you don't think about the fact that the creation of HAARP and chemtrails, when you don't understand that these people, the sacred knowledge and the secret knowledge that goes back to these ancient brotherhoods, the Brotherhood of the Snake and the ancient custodial races, they have very, very detailed and accurate information on cycles. Solar cycles, lunar cycles, planetary cycles. And so they know well ahead of time these different things that are going to happen. So once you're aware that they have this knowledge and you understand that, knowing that there may be events from the Cygnus star system or from our sun itself blasting the earth with different particles, and when you understand that this mitigation technology of blasting the holes in the atmosphere with HAARP and then going back over them with chemtrails over a period of years to see how you could fill them up would be something they would want to know how to do in advance to an event happening, a solar event happening, or anything of that nature, bombarding the earth with solar particles or different things like that, different protons, neutrons, all these different things. So that's exactly what's going on here. They're creating this phony facade that they're just now trying to figure out how to geoengineer the climate so that they can, create this backstory that they haven't been doing this for years when we know for a fact they have. The question's urgency has grown as nations have failed in years of talks to agree on a binding long-term deal to rein in their carbon dioxide and other greenhouse gas emissions blamed for global warming. The Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change, the UN-sponsored science network, foresees temperatures rising as much as 6.4 degrees Celsius, 11.45 degrees Fahrenheit by 2100, swelling the seas and disrupting the climate patterns. And again, it's all based on skewed information. This goes on for 4 pages. I'm not going to read it all. Tweaking the climate to save it, who decides? ABC News. I'll drop a link to it in the chat room so you can read it on your own. There you go. You want me to read you a bedtime story in the voice? Okay, what would you like to hear? Tonight, we're going to talk about the Rockefellers and how they stole your goddamn money out of the bank. Sleep tight, motherfucker. You won't get any Z's tonight. I know, I'm an asshole. Go ahead and say it. Yes. Oh, man, oh, man, oh, man. Let me see here. Oh, here's a great one. Ever wonder why Mars is red? Well, a lot of people believe Mars is not actually red, but blue. But, the colors have been used on and basically colored over in the pictures and whatnot. Mars has not always been red. At least one theory is proposed by a scientist who has discovered a reason as to how the planet got its rosy color. According to Dr. John Brandenburg, about 180 million years ago, a planet-shattering yet naturally occurring nuclear reaction. Well, that's a new one. Think about that for a minute. A planet-shattering yet naturally occurring nuclear reaction may have wiped out everything on Mars, sending a shockwave that turned the planet into dry sand. Well, a lot of people believe that what happened on Mars and what happened on Earth many years ago that scorched both to ash is described in different texts like the Bhagavad Gita and others. The Upanishads, I believe, is another one. He told Fox News the Martian surface is covered with a thin layer of radioactive substances, including uranium, thorium, and radioactive potassium, and this pattern radiates from a hot spot on Mars. A nuclear explosion could have sent debris all around the planet. Maps of gamma rays on Mars show a big red spot that seems like a radiating debris pattern. On the opposite side of the planet, there is another red spot. Yeah, nuke zones. Dr. Brandenburg, who is a senior propulsion scientist at Orbital Technologies Corporation, said the natural explosion, the equivalent of 1 million 1 megaton hydrogen bombs, occurred in the northern Mare Acidium region of Mars, where there is such heavy concentration of radioactivity. This explosion also filled the Martian atmosphere with radioisotopes, which are seen in recent gamma-ray spectrometry data taken by NASA. The radioactivity also explains why the planet looks red. Mr. Brandenburg believes that a natural nuclear reaction could have occurred on our own planet and could have occurred on our own planet and could happen again. A natural nuclear reaction. Well, boy, wouldn't that be convenient for the elite? I mean, I'm sorry. Again, has my fucking head been lodged so far up my ass that I've never heard of that? I have never heard of just yeah, it's just it's kind of like spontaneous human combustion, Oh, yeah, people just, go up in flames and get turned to ash for no reason, catch on fire. Oh, yeah, there's natural nuclear reactions that wipe out everything on a planet. It just happens naturally. You don't know when it's going to happen. You can't predict it. But, hey, it happens. It's one of those things. You deal with it. You move on. What? I mean, this is the first I've heard of just a natural nuclear disaster that could happen on Earth, too. What? Give me a fucking break. So these guys can be like, beep. Yeah, I don't really know much about that. Apparently, Guyman, there were some video stills that came back, some video images that came back that came through that were intercepted or something that somebody put out there that weren't washed over red. You can actually see the atmosphere. Allegedly, they're lying to us about Mars being uninhabited because it is habited underground, and I don't know. I mean, it's one of those things, man, when you watch as many movies and videos as I do, you kind of forget where you just kind of pick up on pieces of things and kind of forget where you saw that at. And I'm not just saying I believe that or anything or that, but I'm just putting it out there that it is a widely held belief, and some of the pictures and stuff I've seen kind of make you go, well, yeah, it's possible. But if I see anything of that, pictures or anything like that, or a website with it, I'll definitely send it over to you and let you know where I find that at. You might just type Mars red sky fake or Mars sky is really blue or something like that into Google, and you might find something. All right, I need a break. My voice is kind of blah, and I've got to get ready to get back into reading for you here tonight. When we come back from this break, we're going to get into chapter 15 of William Bramley's The Gods of Eden for you here tonight. Muhammad. This should be a very interesting reading. We'll continue our series. Also, the first 12 chapters are now up on YouTube. Type Josh Reeves, William Bramley, Gods of Eden into YouTube. You should be able to find that. So those are up there. And thanks to... all right, back here with you on the Global Reality, right here on the Global Reality Radio Network, late night Moonbat edition for you here tonight, folks. Glad you could join us. And we're going to be getting into chapter 15 for you here tonight from William Bramley's The Gods of Eden. And we're supposed to have... William Henry, I think, or William, was that who it was? William Henry, or is that his name? God, I have so terrible with names sometimes. That was the guy's name, right? William Henry, right? Yeah, we're supposed to have him on the show as well. I got to find out from Nick exactly when he wanted to, William Henry. When he wanted to have him on, it seems like he said something about having him on the 8th. If that's true, let me know, Nick. Send me an email or something, or pop in the chat. Let me know. Or just send me an email actually, because if it's on the 8th that he wanted to do that, I can't do it on the 8th. I just want to let you know. So just let me know for sure. But anyway, we're going to be getting into chapter 15 of William Bramley's The Gods of Eden tonight, and we'll have William Bramley on the broadcast for you on April the 18th. At 7 p.m. Central Standard Time, so you want to tune in for that show for sure. Please support our work as well, folks. We're kind of low on the fund department right now. We need a lot of help, so please use the donate button there if you want to help us out in a large way. Smaller donations, if you want to help out with the bills and stuff, use the chip-in banner for that. It's there. Please help us. We just had to pay the bills, so we're pushing forward to get out the See Right Volume 2, and I'm still working feverishly on this thing, trying to make it the best I can make it be before I put it out there, and I think it's going to be definitely that by the time I'm done with it. So very, very excited as I continue to push forward in that. But again, please support our work at the website, theglobalreality.com. Chapter 15, Muhammad, here from William Bramley's Gods of Eden. Let's jump right into that tonight. Muhammad was born circa 570 AD. As with Jesus, there are gaping holes in the life history of Muhammad, especially in regard to his childhood and early adulthood. To fill in the gap, some historians hypothesize that Muhammad was an orphan who had been shunned about among relatives during his youth. It is known that at age 25, He married a wealthy widow, and some biographers believe that he worked as a tradesman in her business for the next 15 years, although that is not entirely certain. At age 40, Muhammad suddenly emerged as a religious prophet and the leader of a powerful new religious movement. According to Muhammad's own statements, his religious mission was triggered by an apparition. The vision occurred outside a secluded cave to which Muhammad would frequently retire for prayer and contemplation. The apparition was an angel bearing a message from Muhammad to spread. This was not just any angel, however. It called itself Gabriel, one of the most important of the Christian angels. Muhammad described the meeting in these words: "The Quran is no other than a revelation revealed to him. One terrible in power taught it to him, endued him with wisdom. With even balance stood he in the highest part of the horizon. Then he came nearer and approached and was at a distance of 2 bows in even closer. And he revealed to his servant what he revealed." The Quran repeats this story, that it is the word of an illustrious messenger endued with power, having influence with the Lord of the throne, obeyed there by angels, faithful to his trust, and your compatriot is not one possessed by jinn. And the jinn, J-I-N-N, are spirits. That's what they put inside. That's where genies come from. The jinn are the spirits that they put inside of the genie bottles. That's what those are. And that's what horrified me once I finally saw the footage. Because after years and years and years of talking about, the break-in to the Iraq National Museum after the invasion of Baghdad in 2003, where they stole all the ancient artifacts. Well, I tell you what, seeing that video from BBC, I mean, there's actual BBC footage, folks. I've seen it where they show them breaking into the vault, special forces, our troops. And when they break open the door and they go inside, there's just thousands of those genie bottles everywhere. And I started thinking, oh my God, did they go in there and let all these fucking spirits loose? It's crazy. Muhammad was either semi-conscious or in a trance when the angel Gabriel ordered him to recite and record his message that the angel was about to give him. The angel's command to Muhammad was much like the old commands given earlier in the history books to Ezekiel of the Old Testament and to John of the book of Revelation by similar custodial personnel. When Muhammad awoke, it seemed to him that the angel's words were inscribed upon his heart. This is significant, for it suggests that Muhammad, like Ezekiel, John, and perhaps even Constantine, had been drugged and mentally tampered with so that the message would be more firmly implanted in his mind. Trauma-based mind control. And, I've never really thought about it, but, if you, wow, that kind of makes a lot of sense, doesn't it? That these messianic figures were, chosen by the custodians of the extraterrestrials or what have you, and then, possibly taken up into a ship and subjected to all sorts of trauma-based mind control experiments to which, then all of a sudden they become the harbingers and the sort of bringer-abouts of these religions that were created by these custodial masters. Wow. Never really thought about it like that, but that does make a lot of sense. And because, again, as in the macrocosm, so in the microcosm, as above, so below. I mean, where do you think where do you think our rulers learned where to do this at? That's why they're the progeny of these people. And we know that they are because of our knowledge of the bloodlines. And we see how crazy this is. This is why reading this book has been so important and is so important for us to do here on the radio show, because, again, it's all these little things that fill in the blanks for us. The message given to Muhammad was a new religion called Islam, which means surrender. Followers must surrender to God. Members of Muhammad's faith are therefore called Muslims, which comes from the word Muslim, one who submits. And Islam was one more custodial religion designed to instill abject obedience in humans. The supreme being of the Islam faith is named Allah. And it says, it's amazing. It says right there in the Quran that Allah comes from Sirius. I mean, it just straight up says it. They don't hide it or anything. Right there in the Quran, folks, it says Allah comes from Sirius. I mean, my God. What more do you need? The supreme being of the Islam faith is named Allah, who was said by Muhammad to be the same God as the Jewish and Christian Jehovah. Two key themes of the Quran are its day of judgment prophecy and its fire and brimstone depiction of hell. Muhammad honored Moses and Jesus as Allah's two previous messengers and proclaimed Islam to be the third and final revelation from God. It was therefore the duty of all Jews and Christians to convert to Islam. Hebrews and Christians tended to be less than cooperative with Muhammad's demand. After all, they had been warned in their own apocalyptic writings about the dangers of false prophets. Again, pitting us against each other. Divide and conquer. They've been doing this since the beginning of time, and they're still doing it right now today with, new names for the operation. Now they call it, teabaggers, or now they call it the truth movement, whatever have you. The result has been one of the bloodiest fighting in world history. And again, that's proven. That's the importance of the CMP information right there. Tracing it back to the priest class, back to the Jesuit order, because it traces it back to these same very people. Like so many custodial religions before it, Islam did not allow people the luxury of choosing whether or not to become adherents. Muhammad embarked on a program of conquest to make it clear which way the choice was to go. Using the tactics of a general emoso, the divinely inspired Muhammad raised an army and set off to convert unfaithful ones, infidels, to his faith. Muhammad's apocalyptic army cut a wide, bloody swath through most of the Middle East, including important Christian centers. The militant Muslim empire eventually stretched as far as east as India, where elements of Islam were incorporated into the Hindu religion. Untold lives were lost during the Islamic conquest because the Islamic armies were prone to commit fearsome genocides as a part of their mission to bring utopia to mankind. To most infidel Christians, Muslims were nothing more than savage heathens, non-believers. This set up an inevitable conflict into which millions of people would be dragged. 500 years after the death of Muhammad, the Christian world launched a coordinated military effort to force the Muslims out of the Holy Land. That effort is known as the Crusades, and as you know, the Crusades 2.0 are going on right now as we speak. The Christian Crusades to free Palestine for the Muslims took place between 1099 and 1270 AD. Skirmishes and minor battles between Christians and Muslims had broken out before, but it was a call to arms by Pope Urban II in 1095 that finally turned those skirmishes into organized war, involving nearly every Christian ruler of Europe. Hundreds of thousands of Christians enlisted in the Crusades after being promised religious blessings, fiefdoms, and spoils of conquest. Volunteers came from nearly every social class. For many serfs and peasants, the papal call to arms represented a way to escape feudal lords and perhaps to return as wealthy heroes. I mean, that's a fascinating statement, isn't it? Because doesn't that kind of sound similar to the people who are calling for armed conflict and the people who are calling for violent revolution and these phony revolutions being perpetrated by the Patriot movement, Truth movement, that kind of thing? Let me read that again. Volunteers came from nearly every social class. For many serfs and peasants, the papal call to arms represented a way to escape feudal lords and perhaps to return as wealthy heroes. Again, you see how this is being perpetrated yet again in just a different way with a different name and a different face today. The Crusades got off to a good but bloody start. The Christians captured Jerusalem in the summer of 1099, and although the knights and peasants who marched under Christian banners were extolled to practice high virtues and chivalry, they frequently degenerated into butchery and other acts of viciousness. When the Crusaders took Jerusalem in 1099, they murdered many of the non-Christian survivors in a slaughter that claimed the lives of more than 10,000 victims. Not only were the Crusaders killing Muslims, they were also killing Jews who were considered by many Christians to be as heathen as the Muslims. The slaughter of Jews began even before the First Crusade to the Holy Land in that year of 1095. Christian factions started murdering Jews in Europe. A genocidal wave in the German Rhineland was the first major episode. It was sparked by unsubstantiated rumors that Rhineland Jews were using Christian children in their religious sacrifices. Obliterating the Jews became an important element of the Crusades, and the massacres continued even after the Crusades to Jerusalem had ended. The Crusades had another important effect on Europe. Several decades before the launching of the First Crusade, Pope Gregory VII had attempted to put the Roman Catholic Church under greater centralized control. Prior to Gregory's effort, the Catholic Church in Europe was a loosely knit organization run primarily by non-clergymen, the type of organization envisioned by Christianity's earliest founders. After Pope Urban II ascended to the papacy and rallied all good Christians to fight the unholy Muslims, Christian princes and supporters began pledging allegiance directly to the Pope, thereby hastening the centralization effort to the Pope, and which was attempted earlier by Pope Gregory VII. The power of the Roman papacy increased as the holy wars dragged on. Growing numbers of people proclaimed their papal loyalty. Behind the Crusades lay the Brotherhood. Absolutely. The Christian Crusaders were led primarily by two powerful knight organizations with intimate brotherhood ties: the Knights Hospitaller and the Knights of the Temple. The Knights Templar. Oh no, I'm not a Knight of Malta. I'm a Knights Hospitaller of St. John of Jerusalem. Yeah. Oh, thank you, Lynn Horowitz, you dumbass. Like we wouldn't figure out it's the same goddamn thing. Yeah, I'm not a Knight of Malta. I'm a Knights of St. John of Hospitaller of St. John of Jerusalem, by God. Like, yeah, that's me. Ha ha. Phony assholes. You guys are so done. You know, at what point do we declare we officially stick a fork in you? Because I'm ready to eat, and you guys are done. The Knights Hospitaller were so named because they operated a hospital in Jerusalem to help pilgrims in distress. The Hospitallers began operations in the year 1048 as a charitable order. Their purpose was aid and comfort. When the First Crusaders successfully captured the Holy City, the Hospitallers began to receive generous financial support from the wealthy Crusaders. In the year 1118, 70 years after their founding, the Knights Hospitaller underwent a change of leadership and purpose. They were made into a military order dedicated to fighting the Muslims who were continually trying to recapture Jerusalem. With a change of purpose came a change in name. The Hospitallers were variously called the Order of Knights Hospitaller of St. John, the Knights of St. John of Jerusalem, or simply the Knights of St. John. The Hospitallers had named themselves after John, son of the king of Cyprus. John had gone to Jerusalem to aid Christian pilgrims and knights. There is some doubt as to whether the Hospitallers were founded as a brotherhood organization. They reportedly did not function as one at the outset. However, they soon became affiliated with the Brotherhood network by adopting brotherhood traditions and titles. They became ruled by a Grand Master and developed secret rites and rituals. By 1119, 1 year after the Hospitallers had become a fighting order, the Templar Knights were in existence. The Templars originally called themselves the Order of the Poor Knights of Christ because they took solemn vows of poverty. Their name was later changed to the Knights of the Temple. After they were housed near the site where Solomon's Temple had once stood, although the Templars and Hospitallers had a common enemy in the Muslims, the two Christian organizations became bitter rivals. The Templar Knights began their existence as a branch of the Brotherhood. They practiced a deep mystical tradition, and used many Brotherhood titles, notably Grand Master. Like the Hospitaller Knights and Templars, the Templars received a large sum of money from well-to-do Christian crusaders. The Templars thereby became enormously wealthy and were able to transform themselves into an international banking house during the 12th and 13th centuries. The Templars loaned large sums of money to European kings, princes, merchants, and to at least one Muslim leader. Most of the Templars' riches were stored in strong rooms in their Paris and London temples, causing those cities to become leading financial centers. After the fall of Jerusalem and the final victory of the Muslims in 1291, the fortunes of both knightly orders changed. The Knights of St. John were forced to flee the Holy Land. They took up residence on a succession of islands during the ensuing centuries. With the changes of location came changes in names. They became the Knights of Rhodes after moving to the island of Rhodes. And that's, of course, bloodline, like the Cecil Rhodes Roundtables. They were the Knights of Malta when they moved to that island and ruled it. So right there, that's the key piece of info everybody wondered. You know, now Lynn Horowitz says, I'm not a Knight of Malta. I'm a Knight of St. John of Jerusalem. So right there is that little piece of evidence everybody's been waiting for. And you just heard it. The Knights of St. John, the Hospitallers, moved to the little island of Malta, and that's when they became the Knights of Malta. So again, one more nail in the coffin there of Dr. Lynn Horowitz and his, I'm not a Knight of Malta, I'm a Knight of St. John of Jerusalem. Ha, 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 ha. Yep, that's me. Yeah, nice try, asshat. You're busted. You're done. Next. While in Malta, the Knights became a major military and naval power in the Mediterranean until their defeat in 1789 by Napoleon. After enjoying temporary protection under Russian Emperor Paul I, the Knights of Malta had their headquarters moved to Rome in 1834 by Pope Leo VIII. Today, they are known as the Sovereign and Military Order of Malta, the SMOM. And they have the unusual distinction of being the world's smallest nation. Located in a walled enclave in central Rome, Sovereign Military Order of Malta still retains its status as a sovereign state. Although new Grand Masters of the Order must be approved by the Pope, the Sovereign Military Order of Malta runs hospitals, clinics, and leper colonies throughout the world, and it also gives active assistance to anti-communist causes and is surprisingly influential in political, business, and intelligence circles today, despite its small size. And you see, you read something like that and you figure out why this book has been largely ignored by the Truth Patriot community. I mean, really, because it's all in here. And it all, again, I've said this before since we've been reading this, and I got to say it again. This explains to me 100% for years why Alex Jones and others have always told us, no, don't look into that. That's a distraction. Focus on the bankers and focus on Ron Paul and all this over here in the Constitution, but don't look into this information. Don't look into the extraterrestrial stuff. Don't look into that. Well, this is why. Because it's intimately connected to the people whose asses he's covering. It's just it's all right there, and if you ignore it anymore, you're with them. But you're covering their ass too. The Templar Knights did not fare as well as the Hospitallers after their Crusades. They were forced to flee with the Hospitallers to the island of Cyprus, whereupon the Templars split up and returned to their many Templar houses in Europe. The Templars came under heavy criticism for their failure to save the Holy Land, and rumors circulated that they engaged in heresy and immorality. Accusations were made that the Templars spat on the cross during their initiations and forced members to engage in homosexual acts. By 1307, the Templar controversy had become so strong that Philip IV, the Fair of France, ordered the arrest of all Templars within his dominion and used torture to extract confessions. 5 years later, the Pope dissolved the Templar order by papal decree. Many Templars were executed, including Grand Master Jacques de Molay, who was publicly burned at the stake on March 11th, 311, 1314, in front of the Cathedral of Notre Dame in Paris. Nearly all Templar properties were confiscated and turned over to the Hospitaller Knights. The long and intense rivalry between the Hospitallers and the Templars had finally come to an end. The Hospitallers emerged as the victors. Their victory could not have occurred at a more fortuitous time, for there had been serious discussion within papal circles about merging the two orders, a plan which would have been completely unacceptable to both. Despite the downfall of the Templar Knights, the organization managed to survive. According to Freemasonic historian Albert Mackey, the Knights Templar were given a home in Portugal in Portugal by King Denis after their banishment for the rest of the Catholic Empire. In Portugal, the Templars were granted their usual rights and privileges. They wore the same costumes and they were governed by the same rules they had before. The decree which reestablished the Templars in Portugal stated that they were in that country to be rehabilitated. Pope Clement V approved the rehabilitation plan and issued a bull, an official proclamation commanding that the Templars change their name to the Knights of Christ. The Templars, or the Knights of Christ, also changed the cross on their uniform from the 8-pointed Maltese cross to the official Latin cross. And this is a long-ass chapter. Way more than I can get into tonight. So we're going to stop right there. I want to break this up because there's a lot of info here. So I want to stop right there for tonight, give you a chance to digest everything that we read tonight, because it was a lot. And there's a lot more to go in this chapter. And, maybe listen to the archive again and maybe kind of listen to me go through it again so you can kind of absorb what's there. And then tomorrow night on the show, we'll go into the rest of this chapter. And I think after having 24 hours to kind of digest the first part of it, you'll appreciate the rest of it a lot more. And I think I will too. So let's just do it like that. But anyway, thanks to everybody for tuning in tonight, staying up late with us, man. I appreciate it. It was a good show. And I feel like, again, every time we've been reading this stuff, I feel like I've gained something out of it. And I hope you have as well. Please support our work at the website. The chip and banner is there for bills and for everything else of the month. If you want to donate a larger amount like that towards our films, towards our work to help us grow, please do so with the donate button, folks. We need your support right now more than ever. My name is Josh Reeves, and I love each and every one of you. We'll see you tomorrow for the broadcast. You guys have a great one. Take care.